And now your True Adventure host, Bill Burrud.
Hi there, this is Bill Burrud saying, welcome to Adventure. True adventure filmed as it happens throughout our fascinating world. You know, it's been quite a few thousand years since the human race moved out of the caves into history. But recently, some people have been moving back in. Not looking for a place to live, of course, but in search of excitement. And that's something that cave exploring provides in abundance. This is a rugged sport, not recommended for people with claustrophobia. To go in for it, you need iron muscles and nerves to match. There's an estimated 500,000 caves scattered around the globe, 30,000 of them in the United States alone. There are narrow, tortuous passages like this one, huge vaulted caverns, fantastic rock formations, underground rivers and waterfalls. In some of the best-known caves, there are literally miles of deeper passages still unexplored. Now, we'll talk to a special guest with his own slant on cave exploration later in the show. Now, this is not only an exciting and dangerous sport, it's become an organized branch of science called speleology. But you don't have to be a scientific expert to respond to the challenge and the mystery of this underground world. All it takes is nerve, know-how, and an appetite for true adventure. True adventure can begin anywhere. This one begins at a popular tourist attraction just a few miles east of Tucson, Arizona. Surrounded by this dramatic desert landscape is the entrance to Colossal Cave. Regular visitors see only a fraction of Colossal Cave. Beyond the tourist routes, beyond the miles of passageways already explored, are deeper areas no one has ever penetrated. Joe Meyerhauser, a spelunker or cave explorer with years of experience, has agreed to help our camera crew find their way to one of those fantastic sections. Going with him will be Buddy Noonan and Miles Hinshaw, both experienced photographers accustomed to using motion picture equipment in almost impossible circumstances. There is one worry: our camera crew is going to be spared on this trip. Colossal Cave is dry, so there's no need for elaborate waterproof cases and covers for the photographic gear. They'll have enough to pack in as it is. There's no light where they'll be going, so they'll have to take their own. And of course, all this is in addition to the regular equipment. Hard hats are a must, complete with carbide lamps. You never know when a rope may save your life. And in spite of modern high-speed film, they'll need power from this generator to provide enough light to film by. Colossal Cave first became a tourist attraction back in the 20s. And now thousands of people every month take guided tours along this route. Here, Joe Meyerhauser points out a narrow crawlway leading off the main route. This is where we're going. Used for centuries by Indians, then forgotten, Colossal Cave was rediscovered in 1879 by a Mr. Ross and a Mr. Solomon Lick. They'd hardly recognize it now, though, at least not here near the entrance. The state of Arizona acquired the cave during the Depression of the 30s and installed trails and electric lights to make it more of a tourist attraction. Then in 1956, it was leased to Joe Meyerhauser and Earl Brocklesby for further development. Colossal Cave draws more than 70,000 visitors a year to see sights like this. This is where we leave the regular trails, though. In a cramped, confining passage like this, Even an experienced cave explorer or spelunker can get a case of jitters. For someone with little or no experience, it doesn't take a great deal to push those jitters over the edge into panic. Just suppose your light should fail. It's not only dark down here, this is a place where daylight has never penetrated. Never in all the thousands of years this labyrinth has existed. Some of the stories about Colossal Cave are pretty fantastic, too. A wild chapter of Western history was written in this part of the cave system. Back in 1884, through the same crawlway our expedition is carrying its equipment and cameras, 4 bandits dragged $62,000 in gold coins, the proceeds from a Union Pacific train robbery. Somehow, they found their way through here while a Tucson sheriff's posse camped at the cave's entrance, waiting to starve them out. They might have made a clean getaway if they'd been able to keep their mouths shut. But 2 weeks later, a cowboy brought word to Sheriff Bob Leatherwood that 4 men in a nearby town were boasting how they'd made a fool of him. He trailed them. 3 died in an old-fashioned Western gun battle, and 1 went to jail. It was actually years before anyone discovered their escape route and the exit it led to. What happened to the loot? No one knows to this day. But the route isn't all crawlway. At times, the passage widens suddenly into rooms like this. The problems involved in making a trip like this are nothing compared to the problems you face when you try to film it. Joe and the camera crew leave the bandits' escape route here. And down below, they enter an unexplored section. About 39 miles of passages have been explored, but geologists estimate that this may be as little as 10% of the total. Whoever gave Colossal Cave its name had no idea how colossal it really is. Colossal Cave, Arizona, a complex of underground rooms connected by a maze of chimneys and passages. The whole cave system perhaps even bigger than the famous Carlsbad Caverns. Here, the members of our True Adventure team stand on the edge of the unknown. There's little to mark the passage of time in Colossal Cave. It supports no life. The bats that shelter here find their food outside. Even the graceful dripstone formations have stopped growing because there's no water. Our true adventure expedition is moving deeper into the heart of Colossal Cave. Here you need to know a thorough knowledge of mountain climbing techniques. The one Joe Meyerhauser is using is called chimneying. Every passageway in this bewildering labyrinth, every tiny room or huge underground chamber was created thousands upon thousands of years ago by action of water. Water that seeped down between the joints and the cracks in the native limestone, dissolving it away, particle by particle. As long as water continued to seep down, the shape and the decoration of the cave went on changing, producing forms like these. Some stalactites have this odd characteristic. There are no echoes. Instead of bouncing back, sounds get lost in the endless crannies and passages. Stalagmites, Joe Meyerhauser explains, are formed by dripping water that has seeped through limestone and dissolved some of it in the form of calcium bicarbonate. As each drop of water evaporates, it deposits microscopic amount of calcium carbonate. Overhead, meantime, providing the water isn't dripping too quickly, tiny amounts are also being deposited on the ceiling, forming stalactites. After many centuries and countless millions of drops of water, stalactite and stalagmites can grow together, forming a column like this. Stalactites and stalagmites are just two of the many different types of formations built up by deposits of calcium carbonate. Here Joe shows us how water dripping from the stalactites above and landing on vertical rock instead of onto a flat surface created this formation called flowstone. Cave air is usually so pure and free of dust and pollen that caves are a paradise for people with hay fever. Usually, but don't gamble on it. There's always the chance that a hole like this one will contain no breathable air at all. Before going down there, Joe insists on checking it for the presence of carbon dioxide. A cave in Texas, Kaiser Cave, pours out a constant stream of carbon dioxide from its mouth, one of the many unsolved mysteries of American caves. It's not a poisonous gas, but it's heavy and collects at low levels underneath the oxygen supply. Anyone stumbling into a pocket of it is likely to die of asphyxiation. If the bright yellow chemical released from the capsule turns black, they'll know the air down there is no good. This 3-minute precaution might save a life. Time's up. no change. It's still bright yellow. The air below is okay. So down we go. What'll they find down there? Deeper caverns? A continuation of the maze of passages and crawlways? A dead end? There's only one way to find out. This is the thrill of cave exploration. Here is what our expedition finds at the bottom of the hole. And there's a further passage leading deeper still. This could literally go on for days. The party that explored 39 miles of Colossal Cave was underground for 6 days and 7 nights. Not having brought in supplies for that long a stay, it's soon time to turn back, rejoining the bandits' escape route to the outside. There on the ceiling, traces of smoke. Someone at some time apparently lit a small fire here. It may have even been the train robbers themselves all the way back in 1884. After all, Craighead Caverns in eastern Tennessee preserve not just the bones, but the footprint of a jaguar. The animal must have died at least centuries ago, but the print was as fresh as if it had been made yesterday. Finds like that add a special excitement to the dangers of spelunking. You never know when some lucky discovery is going to take you back hundreds or even thousands of years, illuminating something of the human race's history, or perhaps telling a story from the ages before men walked upon the earth. There it is, almost the end of the line. Up there's a tiny opening into daylight. This is the exit at the end of the bandits' escape route. Ironically, when the four bandits made their way through this opening to temporary freedom way back in 1884, they were only a quarter of a mile from the sheriff's posse lying in wait for them at the main entrance. The expedition is over, but the strange spell of that underground world isn't easy to shake off. Down there, in the labyrinth called Colossal Cave, there's more than total darkness and danger. There's a fascination about caving, and it's caught men like Joe Meyerhauser and many others like him, impelled them to make careers out of caves, exploring them, studying them, trying to ferret out their secrets. What's in store for us in the unexplored miles under that hill? Perhaps the answers to some scientific questions, perhaps only more puzzles. More to the point, a cave is an invitation to true adventure. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I said speleology is a science as well as an exciting sport, as we saw in our film story. I have a special guest. His name is Charles Rosaire. He happens to be the assistant curator of the Southwest Museum in Southern California, and his scientific studies have taken him many times into fascinating caves. Charles, first of all, why do you go into caves for science?
Well, because there are many things that we can find in caves that we can't find on the surface outside, such as perishable material, basketry, matting, or even mummies occasionally.
Gee, that must be quite exciting. Now, for instance, well, let's perhaps show some of the things that you've actually found in exploring some of these caves. The Southwest Museum, of course, has mostly Indian artifacts, so
That's right.
Would you explain them to us?
Well, one of the things that we have found in a cave is this sandal, and here you can see that it's made out of tules, and here are the actual wear marks. That's why it's roughened on this surface.
I'm going to hold it like that so they can see it. Tules, you mean that's just...
The tules that they would collect along the edge of the lakes.
Now, how old is this item that we're holding, or that you're holding?
Well, this particular one is from northern Nevada and dates around 5,000 years ago.
5,000 years ago? That cave has lasted that long. Probably
yeah.
go all the way through the atomic age, won't it?
Yes.
What else do you have?
Well,
Charles?
one other thing that I have here is a piece of matting that they used to cover themselves at night or to lay down to make a bed.
Was that found in the same cave?
Yes, this was found in the same cave in
It
Nevada.
Also would be about 5,000 years
Yes,
old.
these would be about contemporaneous in the deposit.
Now, you were telling me an interesting story about a scientist who went into a cave and got into some considerable problems. What was that?
Well, our curator at the museum went into a cave where he crawled in a very narrow passage and then dropped down into a room, and then he found that he had dropped down too far and he couldn't scramble out. So one of the things you have to realize is not to panic. So he realized this and looked around to see if there was some rocks or something that he could pile up, which he was able to do, fortunately. And then by piling the rocks up, he was able to climb up to a position where he could climb out of the hole that he came through.
Boy, I bet he was glad to get out. Now, I suppose that you concentrate on Indian artifacts, but let's ask this question. What are some of the greatest archaeological finds in caves, perhaps in other parts of the world, that you can recall?
Well, there are the Dead Sea Scrolls were found in a cave in the Near East. And in China, some of the earliest remains known to the world were found in a cave at Chukutian.
Boy, that must have been exciting to find the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, that was not found by a scientist, though. The scrolls were found just by some wandering nomads.
That's right, and a lot of times things are found by people who are not professionals because there are so few of us that sometimes we have to rely on others to give us the information.
Charles, we have a lot of young people watching, and I'd like to have you give them one warning about going into caves. What's that?
Well, one of the things you have to be careful of is, like the gentleman I mentioned, that you have to know where you are going and have light, and also beware of animals or rattlesnakes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think they'll take that advice. And thank you, Charles, for being on our program. And I want to thank you for sharing this true adventure with us. Until we meet once again, this is Bill Burrud saying, may all your adventures be happy ones.